Sam, we're excited to talk to you about this issue today because this question has been weighing on my mind a lot. Beth and I have talked about it as we've kind of been diving into this issue of men and boys and how we can arrange public policy and aspects of our society to be more conducive to thriving and flourishing for men and boys. And the big question I think will be fun to talk about with you today is this question of what anchors young men? What are the kinds of things that they need to have access to formative institutions for character formation, moral formation, in ways that are constructive, and how are they not getting that today, and what can we do about it?
Sure. And when I say this, I don't want to be fatalistic. I don't want it to sound like it's a final pronouncement. And whenever I speak about this, I inevitably get a lot of hate mail from folks and say I've overgeneralized. And I want to be clear that I'm making observations. I visit scores and scores of colleges and universities around the country every year. And I meet with thousands of students, and I love doing it. But, anytime I make some claim about something or another, people say, hey, you're misunderstanding this. And I do understand that, but, these are my observations, and I'm happy to share them. And what I'm seeing on our college and university campuses today when it comes to men is that even in the schools in the South, where you have a large culture of fraternal life, and you see these guys walking around without shirts, going to various football games and so on, the average college male today comes to college fundamentally broken. And that's a horrible thing for me to say. And when I say broken, what I mean is they come in as first years, unsure of who they are. They are not tethered in meaningful networks and meaningful relationships. They're curious to meet others. They don't know how to make friendships necessarily with fellow men. They certainly don't know how to make friendships with women. I am becoming a dating resource, which I very much am uncomfortable with many men who ask me, how do you approach a young lady? And I regularly say, this is just not something I can help you with, but the questions are thrown my way all the time. And I'm seeing men who simply feel lost, untethered, unanchored. There's something in them, in many cases, they want to contribute, but more often than not, they don't know their place in the world. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to behave. And I think most troubling on many of our college and university campuses, they feel like they're under attack. Over the last decade or so, we have talked, in the public sphere, quite a bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion in these sorts of programs. And one of the hallmarks of these programs, and I'm sure going to get a lot of hate mail for saying this, is that, fairly frequently we see men portrayed as predatory. We see men portrayed as misogynistic. We see men portrayed as dangerous and threatening. And when so many of these men set foot on campus, are at pre-orientation or orientation programs and come in lost, come in lacking social connection, lacking a purpose in many cases, and then are told they're dangerous. For better or for worse, this does not serve the men very well. This does not serve our communities very well. This does not serve our campuses very well. So this is a fairly negative picture. I'm sorry to say it. But I also believe that we have to talk about this openly, and it's the only way we're going to move forward and probably solve it, which is to say men are struggling. They're missing some things. They're being told they're not great. And my point is we need to think about saying, let's stop using this language. Let's stop saying they're not great, and let's try to help them get a little better.
Sam, what has changed about college campus culture in recent years to cause this, or what about the male student experience has changed in recent decades on campus?
So this is a question we could spend hours on. So I'll try to be very brief on it. Number one, again, goes back to what I had just talked about, which is these orientation programs where you have staffers basically saying, look, again, men are evil, men are dangerous, so on and so forth. And they're telling the students this. And there are tip lines and biased reporting lines on the back of student IDs. If you feel threatened, if you feel uncomfortable, if something made you a little off, call this line. And next thing you know, an administrator of some sort is in your dorm room talking about it. When you walk through many dorms, when you walk through campuses, there is messaging that is unendingly negative toward our young men. And there's a hyperfixation on questions of assault and what is okay to touch, not touch, and so on. So I think that's a very big problem. We have gender imbalances on our college and university campuses where men are very, very much so now the minority, sometimes as low as 30-40% of college and university campuses. You have a faculty that is trending toward more and more women. You have fewer male role models on our college and university campuses. Those are some of the things that our first year students and then our men are dealing with on our higher ed campuses. But on top of that, our men or young men are coming in as first years as freshmen, not anchored to begin with. So you have a problem coming in from earlier, from K-12 life, where they may not have the networks and the role models and the sort of fortitude and anchoring that a lot of these men need. They get there and then they're bombarded with these ideas, these messages, and the idea that if you do something wrong, you may have an administrator coming to you. This creates a huge problem.
I wonder how much of this is a higher ed problem versus just a broader culture problem. And I think back to, it first occurred to me as a new boy mom several years ago now that the term toxic masculinity might be creating a systemic problem for boys, that, this sense of that your identity is inherently wrong in a way became really a part of the popular lexicon. Has that dribbled down to college campuses, or are college campuses creating a broader problem in their own unique ways?
So I think you're exactly right. The toxic masculinity issue and the issue of boys being problematic starts well before they get to college or university campuses. We see this as early as preschools. We see this as early as kindergartens and elementary schools, where boys and girls are different. They develop differently. They need different things. There are videos left and right online that you can watch regularly, right? Where you can see how young boys and young girls who are roughly the same age chronologically, not developmentally, but chronologically behave differently and associate differently. There are incredible videos of showing, two girls playing nicely, and then you'll see two boys where one is throwing the other boy into a trash can and they're giggling. Boys and girls develop differently. This is just a truth, and this is a truth I don't have a problem with. And as a dad myself of a young guy, I love watching that and I love seeing that. So no, the concept of not dealing with boys younger is certainly a problem, and it's absolutely trickled all the way up to college and university campuses. The problem now is that when these men or young men get to campus, we're not correcting it. We're not giving them the support. So they go out, they don't necessarily get married, although that's beginning to shift. And they don't have the role models and the ideas of, okay, now I'm the adult. Are we going to say no to this, and how are we going to behave toward it?
Sam, I want to ask you about, we need to take a quick break in a minute, but I want to ask you about sort of how we can maybe start thinking about changing campus culture, and as Beth mentioned, even kind of broader aspects of culture, to have more of these kind of pro-social, healthy character and moral formation roles, I guess, for young men. And maybe to kind of tease that, let's get into more detail in the next segment. But before we go to break, if you can kind of start thinking about or start articulating for our audience, if you could do anything you wanted, what would you change about college campus culture or policy or administration to make college a more welcoming, positive, formative institution for young men?
That is a huge question. I would say it's time for men generally to step up. It's time for dads to model proper, positive, masculine behavior. And that means demonstrate a moral code. That means showcase that life is far more important than just your bank account. It's about civic virtue. It's about republicanism. It's about being part of one's community writ large. We are not doing that. We do not see enough of that. And I've taken it very seriously and unintentionally as a male professor in my college at Sarah Lawrence to try to represent this. There are so many young men who come to me regularly who want to talk and need guidance. Do I want to be a parent to 50 other men? Obviously not. But do I need to try to show them and showcase, look, you can be more. These are the things we can do. Absolutely. So one of the first things we could do is very, very gently say to the men on university campuses, model this, showcase this. And is it a great public policy solution that needs to be written down from Congress to the White House? No, it's something we can do immediately, quickly, and I believe very powerfully.
Thanks for watching that clip of Defending Ideas. For the full conversation, click the link in the description and make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your shows.